Spirit Switchboard, airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 New Orleans. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into Spirit Switchboard. I am your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on 105.3 and 107.7, the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network in New Orleans. On today's show, I have Rachel Nordahl. I just can't wait to dive into this conversation with Rachel, actually. So Rachel is an entrepreneur. She is known as the Psychic Seamstress. She is, oh my gosh, an author, intuitive coach, an empath, intuitive. The list goes creative. Like the hats that you wear is incredible. And today we're going to be talking about your book that is. It's Monday, right? Monday is the release?
Yes, Monday's the official launch day.
The official launch. So Awaken Intuition, right?
Yes. I'm actually really excited about it. It's something I've been working on like all year. So it's been a big deal.
So honestly, when I was looking at all the information that you sent me, I don't think that you've just been working on this a year. I think that your whole life has culminated to this point. And
I kind of agree with that, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Rachel, when I was, what I was so excited about to be able to tell you today was that I hope somebody is listening and decides to make a Netflix docuseries about you and your life because I'm emotionally invested.
That is awesome, actually, to hear. You're making me blush.
Yeah, I'm fangirling. I'm emotionally invested.
That is
awesome.
Because
it truly is. Like, I mean, I have grown up being intuitive my whole life as well, too, being able to see spirits and connecting and have children the same way. And understand that those of us that are aware from an early age have very interesting stories.
Yes.
Your story in this short, blurbs that I had received, I was like, holy cow. Holy cow. Wow. And I'm like, of course her intuition is going to, yes. And it's not even like a whole book. I'm getting like your condensed version, which, wow. Yes. So I would like you to share, if you don't mind, your story. If we start right at the beginning and understanding, understanding your story. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot to it. It's one of those. It's like, where do you begin and what chapter do you want to start on? Some people develop their psychic abilities, and other people they're born with them. And then depending on your childhood, sometimes they're coping mechanisms. And so
you're slammed into it.
Yes, you're literally, because they're senses. And it's just like hearing and smell and taste. And I don't think people realize that. People a lot of times think it's some like weird woo-woo thing that like only certain people have. And it's not. It's just most people don't develop them because a lot of it, especially children that grow up with an unstable household, or there's trauma, or there's the tumultuous different aspects going on in their life. And so as children, they become coping mechanisms. And a lot of times children aren't even aware that they're tapping into it. And it gets very confusing as you separate yourself from your parents and you're trying to navigate what's going on with you. And a lot of times it's a blessing and it's a curse because it's very confusing until you understand what you're doing and how it works, and then learning how to ground yourself in it and being able to turn it off and on, because otherwise your antenna's just flying all over the place and you're trying to decipher what's yours and what's the outside noise and
Yeah.
how to filter it and how to process it. So I would say it definitely,
Which is 20 arms of conversation.
Yes.
All of that.
It really is.
Yes.
And it's a lot to take in because
Discernment,
yes,
understanding how your body is absorbing energy and how
yes,
you're processing that and how you're interpreting it. Like there's
yep.
just so much to it.
I think for me, where my story really began, because as a kid, I didn't really understand what was happening. It was just something I was innately doing.
Right.
And it was just how I navigated the world. And I spent a lot of time in my imagination. And in a lot of ways, with all the dysfunction and things that were going on at home or in family, I don't have memories the same like way that my older siblings do. Because I was lost in my imagination and playing with dolls and playing with imaginary friends. And I was encapsulated in my own little bubble. And so for me, it wasn't until my 20s that I realized there was a whole world out there and it didn't exist the way that I saw it in my head.
Right.
And so learning how to figure that out and navigate that was hard enough because it felt like someone just dropped me on my head. And trying to
That came
navigate that. Yes.
Honestly, like that came. I'm like in between being a seamstress,
Yes.
restaurateur.
Yeah.
Like there's so
The clothing kind of came from, it was my early 20s. I was a single mom and I had a near death car accident where I flipped off a bridge at 70 miles an hour on a curve. And so I lost the use of everything from the waist down. But prior to that car accident, and I think this is for me, life is interesting because timing is everything. And I don't think people realize how much timing plays a part in life. Because everyone's always in a rush to get to a destination. And then when you look in hindsight, things that happen to you, and this is one of the biggest things that I learned, some of the most horrible things that happen to you are the biggest blessings that'll ever happen to you in life.
100%.
So like
including our parents.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I say like the good and the bad, but the negative, that's where personal growth happens.
Yeah.
That contrast is where we grow and expand. And so it is a really huge, big part of life. And that does come with your parents, good or bad. That comes with your family, good or bad. And that's just a blueprint of where you started. That's not where you're going to end up. But before I had that car accident, I had started my vocational school in somatic therapies, and I had gotten into massage therapy that led me down to neurostructural body work. And so that's what I was doing. So like I was in school all the time and I was getting body work done and healing modalities on my body on a daily basis, 5 days a week. So we were doing like, our teacher had us doing 45 minutes of yoga to ground us in our body. And then we were doing energy work and we were learning all these different modalities before we were allowed to touch each other and actually work on each other. So I had been doing that for several years. And so when the car crash happened, I was told I was never going to walk again. That was the prognosis. And because I had had the education that I had, and I was very much in my body, that just didn't compute. Like I was very much in tune with what was going on with me. And so I did end up walking again. And I hit my left temporal pretty hard in that crash. And ever since then, the way that my brain processes pareidolia is very different. It's like way overdeveloped. Like I see patterns in everything and I'm constantly connecting dots and peeling back the layers. And my brain naturally does it at a really hyper fast rate.
So for some people who are listening, they may not know what pareidolia is. Can you?
Like when you look at the clouds in the sky, or a lot of times you'll see memes on Facebook and there's images and patterns laid in it, or where you look at the clouds and you'll see an elephant, or you'll see a dragon, or you'll see different patterns and shapes within just regular objects, like your perception when you unfocus
mashed
your
potatoes.
Eyes. Yes.
They're toast.
Yes. And it's basically when you focus on something and you dilate your eyes just a little bit and you relax them, you'll see other images on top of that. For me, I don't have to relax to do that. I do it when I look in the mirror. I do it when I look at anything. I'm constantly seeing weird patterns and images all over the place. So the way that I process information is different because I'm constantly analyzing and looking at how things are connected, and I'm constantly seeing things from multiple perspectives at once. So it's just a little bit different. And when it first happened, like after the car crash, it was really weird because I thought I hit my head too hard. Because it was like you'd be having conversations with people and I would be answering the quiet parts out loud, the things they weren't saying when they were talking. And it did cause a lot of discomfort in conversations because I was hearing everything that wasn't being spoken. And so I thought there was something wrong with me. And I was just like, oh man. And so it was something I had to learn how to like adapt to and process what was actually happening. And then from there.
And you don't want to feel like you're dumbing yourself down either.
Yes.
You want to feel like you can be authentically yourself, but learning how to integrate it.
Yes. And in my 20s, I would definitely say that was a really big fear of mine. I did think there was something wrong with me because I didn't fully understand. Going from being a child that naturally did that, going into the world and then finding out that not everyone is their authentically self. Not everyone is honest about what they're feeling or what they're experiencing. That was very foreign to me because I didn't come from a family where you had to pretend to be someone out in the world and then you're someone very different at home. I didn't have that. I had very bohemian artist intellect parents. So we didn't have that in our household.
Wow.
And so for me going out into the world, it was very confusing. And then I'm having these experiences and you find out other people don't see things that way. Because you just, as a child, you just naturally assume, well, if I do, then everyone does. There is no, you don't actually go, well, there's something different about you. That's not how you look at it. And so it was very turbulent going into my 20s because it was very much, like I said, it just felt like I got dropped on my head because I was like, what? I don't understand. Why isn't everyone else as sensitive?
I have a kiddo that's in this autism spectrum, and he said that from a very, very young age. He's like, people don't say their truth, and he used to see what they weren't saying as well too, right? Like he approached a teacher once and he said, I'm sorry that you're upset today. And she's like, oh, I'm okay. And he's like, no, he said, when you're upset, you chew on your lip, and you've been chewing on your lip all day. Just much more observant and aware, right?
Yes, very much taking in your surroundings.
The whole environment.
Yes, absolutely. And that is something, And like I said, going out into the world in my 20s, it was very turbulent, and I felt like the only way I know how to describe it is I felt like I thrashed really hard in myself in my 20s because it was very shocking to me trying to figure out who I was, why I was different, why did I feel so sensitive? I took everything to heart. Just very I want to say very naive. Just there was a lot of innocence, and I didn't understand relationships and different things like that. So I was very intense.
But I think the world needs more people that are feelers. They need more people that cry at the buffet and cry during commercials. Like, we need more people that are compassionate. The world needs more compassion.
Absolutely. Looking back, I don't think there was anything wrong with me. I think it was more learning how to love and accept myself and really step in to my own. And that's
hard. And you were a single parent and having this life altering.
Yes. And
experience.
My son and I definitely, there is a sibling dynamic because I was so young. So there's this hierarchy, but there's much more of like we were raising each other. And you can definitely see the way that we interact because you can tell there's mother and son, but then there's also this sibling dynamic between the two of us, the way that we interact. Because I definitely think we were growing up together in a lot of ways and learning how. And it's
accountability. honestly.
Yes.
And when we are intuitive and we want to be authentically ourselves, we are giving our children that same permission. And
Yes.
so when we are not being authentic, they flip that coin quick and go, hey.
Oh, they mirror. They completely
Yo,
mirror.
100%.
They will show you your beauty and they will show you your ugly. And because you're the closest person to them and they're the person they feel the safest to, they show you the ugly. And they like more so than they do anyone else. Absolutely. But the bond.
My daughter was the best. She'd be like, Mom, your energy kind of sucks. You should probably leave the room till you feel better and come back. I'm like, okay.
Don't you love how kids are honest? They're so
totally.
honest.
But again, a single parent too,
Yes,
right? And
absolutely.
so you do get into this frenetic trying to be perfect in so many areas and not giving yourself grace.
Yes.
So, you know,
I think in life and and I think in life in general, we tend to not give ourselves as much grace as we give other people. I mean, that's a really big one growing up, is trying to learn how to forgive yourself. Because like we're like the harshest. Yes, I did. I found that like my 30s, I calmed down. And then now in my 40s, you just care a lot less and you're much more accepting and forgiving. You understand yourself so much more. And I feel like not everything has to be such an emotional experience. You're just like, I'm just riding the waves.
Yeah.
And it goes up and it goes down. And like, that's the beauty in it. And I feel like as you get older, you get much more steady on that path than you do when you're younger.
For sure, more conscious awareness happens, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do think you step more into yourself.
I love that you're able to ride with this squirrel on Red Bull energy with me, because we're probably going to go sideways a lot.
I tend to do that naturally anyway. So.
Me too. I love it. I love it. But your story, like the honestly, that the story, so moving from like at that point in time when you were forced to sit still and having to evaluate yourself during that car accident and recovery during that time, did you become more consciously aware of what those intuitive gifts were, I guess?
Well, it's interesting because death is very, very interesting because people respond to it so differently. Yeah. Some people look death in the face and they become very entitled. Some people do it and they get angry and they shut everyone out. And then other people, they get very humbled. And you do, all of a sudden, it's perspective, and all of a sudden, the little tiny little idiosyncrasies become very precious.
Right.
Everything becomes very, very precious. And the little things begin to matter more than the big things. It's the little tiny nuances that matter. And when I lost everything from the waist down, I never really accepted that I was paralyzed, which I think has contributed a lot to why I walk. Because it was just like, my legs are broken, my hips are crushed, it's gonna heal, and we're gonna be okay. And I think for me, turning to art therapy, because that really is where my fashion came to life. Right. And it really was therapy. The first outfit I made, we took a sewing machine and we put it on a dresser, and my sister had drilled the foot pedal to the side of the dresser so that we could prop me up and lean my knee into it, and I could direct my leg with my hand. And that was how I used the foot pedal, because I couldn't use my feet. But I'd been sewing since I was 5. So I knew my way around a sewing machine. Right. But I did it from the bed, and it was just propped up and awkward. But my very first fashion show was from a wheelchair. And so I took everything that I was feeling inside that I couldn't articulate, because I didn't really learn how to articulate and put my emotions or what I was feeling into words until I hit, I want to say around 32, I really learned how to articulate.
Because there's vulnerability in that.
Yes. But also understanding, like, it's one thing to know you're having all these feelings, to actually put those feelings into words that make sense. And I think a lot of times people never know where to start talking. And then it's like you do, and everything just starts pouring out. And it just feels like diarrhea. And then eventually something makes sense.
Yeah.
because all this stuff's been bottled up inside. And I think with the fashion, it gave me a platform to speak my voice because I was creating characters. They were wearable art. And then the fashion shows were performance art pieces with music and choreograph and dancers. And then it just kind of came to life on stage in nightclubs in Los Angeles.
Not just like nightclubs.
No.
Burning Man.
Yes. We did do them in Burning Man.
That's not
too.
a little gig.
For us, it kind of like, I don't know. We've been doing, how long have I done Burning
That's
Man?
a big gig.
Yeah, it was. Well, when I did it, it wasn't as big as it is now because
Right.
it was early 2000s. So
Right.
it was a little bit smaller, and it was still underground a little bit. Like we didn't
Right.
have Wi-Fi. So it was kind of like you're just rounding
It
people
was
up.
grassroots for sure.
Yes, where you were grabbing people off the playa and dragging them into the dome and filling the dome before the fashion show happened. That
Right.
was definitely by far the hardest fashion show that I've ever done. And
Really?
yes, because
What did you learn about yourself through that experience?
God, patience. Trust actually, because when I got there, well, first of all, my ticket didn't happen. So I had literally gotten all of the models out to the playa and I didn't have a ticket. So we sent my artwork, we sent the models. The crew was already there, the sound system was already there, the DJ was already there, and I was the only one that wasn't. We didn't know how we were going to get a ticket. I didn't have a ride, and we didn't know anything until the very last minute. And it was blind faith and trust. And that was one of the biggest things I learned with doing fashion shows. And I think that people don't realize when you're doing, whether you're writing a book, whether you're doing fashion, no matter what you're working on of the project, things stack and they build and they go together. And right before things come to life and actually blossom into what it's supposed to, you kind of get the tower card and everything falls apart. And things get ripped out because when success happens, regardless of what project it is, not everyone gets to go with you. You kind of take that last step. And so it kind of just feels like everything manifests and then it crumbles because that's kind of how the universe takes what's not supposed to be there. It just got you to that point, and then it removes all that, and then it actually creates what it's supposed to be. And there's a lot of trust in that, and you have to learn how to trust the process.
And breathe.
Yes. And you can't overreact about it. You have to go, okay, well, this is weird. I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't really know if I'm going to show up.
I wonder how this is going to play out.
Yes.
I wonder.
The more you surrender to that, the faster it actually catapults you and it happens. Because it was like the last minute, some kid that had been in a fashion show several months prior showed up at my door with a fucking Burning Man ticket. And then all of a sudden another model showed up and she's like, I'm not going to go, but I am going to drive you there. I'm going to make sure you get there. And so she drove me all the way out there in the middle of the night. And then we got there and I went inside and I found the camp, found the crew, rounded up enough money, went back to the gate, got her a ticket at the gate. And then she came in and she was not expecting it. She literally had the clothes on her back and that was it. And she was like, I guess we're doing this. And
but that is sort of what Burning Man was about, right? And
that was what it was about.
Community and pulling.
Yes, that's exactly what it was about. And so we were out there and the stage didn't show up. They had problems with the sound system. It was like every day there was a new obstacle and they were like, I don't know. We don't know if it's going to get built. We don't know if we have it. I don't know. And I was like, well, I guess the worst case scenario, we'll just do it, in the middle of the plot, whatever. And then the night before, everything kind of just came together and it happened. Definitely. But it was one of those, that whole entire event from start to finish was like, you kind of just threw your hands up in the air and you were like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And I'm just going to lean into whatever it is and make it work. And that's how that whole entire show went. And that was the most difficult fashion show I ever did. But it was one of those moments where you really learn to trust the process and you're like, it's going to happen exactly how it's supposed to. And you really do have to trust that.
Is that still part of your life, creating?
I haven't done any type of fashion, I want to say, since 2015. I did that. I grew up at the Renaissance fairs. I designed for my mom, so it kind of came natural. The car crash really propelled me into it. And then from there, I want to say when I started doing the restaurant, you have to be kind of crazy to want to own a restaurant.
My youngest son, currently. Not that he's wanting to own his own restaurant right now. That's the goal. So he's just my baby. So he's just turning 8. Well, he just turned 18, but moving into becoming a chef, right? And he's loving his job and learning, and he's like diving into all the restaurants downtown to talk to any chef that will talk to him and asking them questions to teach him. He's like a little sponge right now.
That's awesome. That's super awesome. That is like super awesome.
Moving into, you still saw food through an artistic lens, though.
Yes. I would say from the doing fashion shows, what I have found, it's interesting because I use the majority of the skill sets that I learned from art. I apply definitely in all areas of my life. Very much so. When I had a boutique in Arizona, I didn't know how to be a boutique owner. I didn't know how to run a store, but I knew how to do production because I had been doing fashion shows for so long. So my grand opening, I produced it the same way that you would do any other production of that scale, because it was all I knew. And it was interesting because, and I remember the night of our grand opening, I nearly had a panic attack because there was a line all the way around the block, because the way that I had produced it, I didn't realize that you don't do that type of production for a boutique.
But why not?
Exactly. But I didn't know that many people would show up. So it was very daunting to see that in my little store, trying to fit that many people inside a building on Main Street. So it was a little bit like I was envisioning people coming and going and shopping and eating, and it was fully catered. There was dancers on pedestals. There was live mannequins in the window. It was like a full production, but I was envisioning this little boutique and people shopping, and it turned out like everyone in town showed up because they were just like, what is this?
So do you not find that's how the universe works too, though? We have a perceived idea. We may not have an expectation to the attached outcome, but if we surrender, the universe can always have something bigger, better, and more in store for us if we allow it.
Absolutely.
Your story just, you
can't control, and that's a big one.
Inspires.
That's a really big one, I think, is that people love to control which direction things are going, or in relationships or on productions. You want to hold on like so tightly because you don't want things to fall apart. But the more that you surrender to it, I found as I've gotten older, the more you surrender to it and you let go and you're just like, whatever. It really does, because the universe does have bigger and better things. And you do take all those skill sets, because you put them in your tool belt, and you'll find that you will use them later. In the restaurant, that was exactly what it is. And we went through different chefs. We had so many different trials and tribulations. And it wasn't until I got behind the sushi bar with my husband and he made the sushi because he didn't want me touching the knives. And then I was actually garnishing the plates and decorating the food and plating everything. And it turned into edible art. And so the snake roll really looked like a snake on the plate. He bought me a carving kit, and I was carving up vegetables and fruit. Everything was edible on the plate. It had color and glitter and lights. And so it was people came just to get the plate to see what it looked like, because they were all one of a kind. And no matter what you ordered, it never came out twice the same way. And that's what people were coming for, was that.
So how much importance do you feel creativity is to intuition?
I think it is, well, it depends because everyone is different, but creativity is one of those things where you can teach skill set and you can teach skills. Creativity is an interesting one because you can teach it to a certain degree, but you either have it or you don't.
And
As far as
there's some
different
people who are
levels.
just very creative at creating drama.
Yes.
That's their skill set.
Yes.
Skill set. Yeah.
It is a skill set, but there's
It is.
people, I find people get addicted to it because I've met people and clients that connect in the dysfunction.
Yeah.
And I have family members that are the same way. Without that, and artists are notorious for that. And I've seen it most of my life where you hear it all the time with artists. Singers say it all the time. Different huge artists say it all the time. If I'm not suffering, I make the best art when I'm suffering. And so they will self-induce drama in their life so they feel heartache, so they can pull from that pain and able to create the most beautiful masterpiece that's macabre. And it resonates with so many people because you can feel the catharticism coming out of it. But the problem with that is, when that happens, is all of your relationships and people around you, they don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
Because it's so just volatile and it's so up and down, and you feel crazy inside. You don't feel balanced. You can't have a healthy relationship, and you're constantly, even on a subconscious level, seeking out that drama, and you're like sabotaging things just so you can feel that gut-wrenching pain in order to create, because you feel like that's the only place to do it. And I feel like it's a big cliche that I've found in the artist community, because I'm like, when you balance yourself and really ground your energy and learn how to channel that energy, you can create the most beautiful things from love, joy, from those places. And when you can actually get to that place where you can pull from your pain and your joy, then you really have something, because then you're balanced. And you can actually appreciate things. And it's amazing the things that you can create. And then you can also tap into the darker side without having to live in it.
Yeah.
If you can pull from over there and pull it into the light and still get that beauty, that's what you want. You don't want to live over there. You want one foot over there and one foot out. You want to be balanced so that you can have healthy relationships with yourself and other people.
Not attracting more and more of
because you're casting a net out.
Exactly.
You are casting that net out, and eventually you're going to pull it all back in, and you're still going to be faced with that reflection of what it is that you put out. And it's that darker, it's your shadow self. And it's like, how long do you want to look at that?
Yeah. I think creativity helps people tap into that inner child as well too, like those things that they have let go of that used to bring them joy. So creativity doesn't have to be perfection. Creativity is just a sense of wonder and a sense of play.
And you should have creativity. Shouldn't be perfection. It's messy, and it's supposed to be. It's like when you're a kid and you're playing in the dirt. You're supposed to get dirty. You're supposed to get messy. And the best way to tap into creativity is remember and connect with what you were doing when you were a kid. When you were innocent, what brought you joy? Was it playing with animals? Was it being out in nature, playing with dolls in your imagination, and getting back to being silly and innocent and, like what you said, curious, getting back to being curious and letting go of the judgment and stepping outside of that and just be curious and peel back that layer and see what's over there. And that's really where it blossoms.
That's right. And giving yourself permission as an adult to do those things.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you have trouble with that, hopefully you attract friends that give you that permission and drag you along on. Let's go. Come on. This is what we're doing. Okay.
You don't have to be so uptight all the time.
Yeah.
Because life's serious enough without that.
So much so. So much so. Creativity is so important. And I love supporting creative people. Love supporting creative people.
No, I do the same thing. It's amazing. Yeah. It's inspiring. I think it's super inspiring because I love giving back just because. it is very, very inspiring watching people grow and watching them take and see what they do with it.
And
But
whether it's creative or tapping into their intuition, if they're just starting that intuitive journey and
I think
becoming
it's
more
one of the
consciously
best things.
aware. Yeah,
Yes.
and those
Well, that
aha
was why
moments.
I wrote this book. I wrote this book because what I was seeing online and just on TikTok, Facebook, the reels, everyone's into videos right now. And so I spent a lot of time watching videos in the psychic realm and in the spiritual realm. And what bothered me so much was everyone's gatekeeping. And it's like, well, you have to climb the ladder. So you can only go to the first step. You can't get to the second one unless you go through this door and you have to pay the toll. And then you can get to this and you have to ascend. And I was like, well, that just seems really silly, because if you actually ground yourself and tap into your intuition, you can bypass all of that, connect to source, and then you can just talk to God yourself. Like, why do we have to ascend and go through all these things? And why would you pick teachers that are gatekeeping like that, first of all? And then secondly, before you pick teachers to teach you, you should be a student of yourself, and you should be the student and the teacher, because you really need to figure out what you believe and who you are, and really tap into your abilities. Because when you do that, teachers are naturally going to find you, because they're going to align with your energy and they're going to come across you. And then the other thing is they have something for you to, they have something to offer you, because you have half of the question already, and you have to kind of arrive with half the answer, because then the information makes sense.
And it's really not giving your power away to someone, and seeing that teachers should be students as well too. Teachers, if they are having accountability, know that they don't know anything either. They are just learning and tapping in, and when you can do that on your own, it's real time information.
I see it all the time when I do readings. When I do readings with people, sometimes when you're giving readings to people, I'll hear myself when I'm channeling, and I'm like, that's really good information. I should also take that.
Yeah.
Like,
but do you not feel that spirit plays that on us as well too? So this is what you are also. Yes.
It's constantly mirroring. Your clients constantly mirror different aspects of yourself. And I do it all the time when I'm reading people, and I'm like, this message wasn't just for you. And I probably should apply that in my own life over here. And it's interesting because it is, people do mirror you constantly.
Do you find that clients, because I see it for myself, it's like the universe decides this week, this is what we are collectively working on.
Yes.
So you have all of these people that are randomly from all over the place, sometimes internationally, and the theme of the week is the same for each client.
It'll even span several weeks, where everybody that calls or everybody that wants reading, it'll literally align with something that's going on with my life, and I will resonate with what it is that they're talking about. Which, when that happens, what's really interesting is it's 10 times easier to tap into, because you can literally taste the energy off of them and pull right off of it. And it's really easy to translate. But I do find that there'll be like, it comes in waves. Everyone's looking for this. They're all kind of looking for the same answer, and then it'll be something else. And it's very different. And I find most people, it's relationships. People want to know how to have relationships. At least that's what they mostly come to me for. People that gravitate towards me, they want to know how to have relationships, whether it's romantic, platonic, family. It's relationships. That's what people usually gravitate towards me for.
So do you find that you take them back to their relationship with themselves first before you extend? Like, do you intuitively tap into what they are needing, attracting? Yeah,
it's individual. It's individual, and it's always different, because sometimes some people are very, very resistant, and they don't want anything other than what's right in front of them. And
yes. And it's so funny when you're super intuitive, you can hear their internal dialogue. And I'm like, I've called some people out. I just heard you tell me off in your head, and it's okay. I'm holding space for you. Let's move through this together.
but it's true though, and that's
It's
all they want to
very true.
hear. And
Yeah.
so you kind of have to read that and go, okay,
Yeah.
well, this is all they can handle, so we'll just address this. And then some people, they want you to expand further,
Yeah.
and they want to go deeper, and and as soon as you do, it's amazing how they melt and open up.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, I'm open to receiving, let's explore. And that's always the best, because you leave feeling fulfilled, like you went on this journey together, and you feel like you actually helped somebody get clarity.
I think maybe 5 years in, I mean, stepping out of the woo-woo closet and publicly saying, this is who I am, right?
Yes.
Was 16 and a half years ago, I guess, now. And for the first few years, you see it as a gift and being of service. So you take on everything that comes your way because it's a gift and you're being of service. And then I shifted what I wanted my intention to be to work with people who want to grow.
Yes.
And I could pull that. Yes. So I saw a shift when I checked myself and did that self-reflection. And then I know that the clients that are coming to me have a different intention that's more in alignment for the way that I want to work.
Absolutely. And that's a process too, because I remember going through that. It's a huge process because you really have to weed it out, and it starts with your own accountability, and you have to learn to say no to people or refer them out to someone else. I'm not the person for you for what it is that you're seeking.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because sometimes you still see it, you'll still see people trying to come in wanting that. And you really do. You have to learn those boundaries and being like,
and holding space with no judgment.
Yes. That's a big one. That's a really big one, especially in this realm, is learning to hold space, learning how to actively listen, learning how to be compassionate with people, even when their story is not something that aligns with you, or however you feel about it, you can't be biased about it. You have to remain open and actually be empathetic to what it is they're going through and sit with them in that space and see it from their perspective and help navigate that with them. And that really comes with active listening, being empathetic, and actually holding that space for them to be what they need to be in that moment, and without judgment, where it's safe.
Exactly.
That's a big one. Yeah. That's a really big one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you find people get to that crisis point? They've had so many things happen, so now they're in a crisis point, and now they're ready to do the self-reflection. Now they're ready to understand and explore why they're getting signs and symbols, or why they not trusting their gut so many times. So there's a crisis that leads them to want to develop their intuition.
It depends. I've met some people that come to it naturally on their own, and it's like, for some people I've seen, it's just easy. Like it just feels very easy, like it's a natural part of progression and growth. And then I've met some people where, yes, they've had to hit a certain point where they're like so uncomfortable with the way things are going, where they've started to notice the patterns. And as soon as you point it out, they're like, oh, that's what it is that I'm experiencing. And how do I shift that? How do I change that?
And so
they do have to have the point.
Does the starting point change depending on where they're coming in at?
What do you mean?
Like, looking at your book, so Awaken Intuition for Beginners. Yeah. So what would the first step be in acknowledging that you're having these experiences?
The first step is being open to the fact that you are having experiences. Everybody is. And then the second one,
everybody is.
Yes, everybody is. And the other one is that I tell people, get a journal. And the reason I say that is because start jotting things down. In the book, it talks about first understand what your intuition is, because everyone experiences it. Everyone's walked into a room and felt uncomfortable and you don't know why. Everyone's had somebody walk up to them and shake their hand or say hello and you cringed.
Yeah.
And you were like, please don't touch me.
That feeling you should slow down because you just need to slow down and drive by a police officer.
Yes. Or all of a
Whatever.
sudden you're like, I've had people say like, I just had this weird feeling I shouldn't go down that road. And then they turned and took a different way home. And then there was a car crash on the road that they were going.
Yeah.
That, you know, everybody's had the experience where they've met somebody and they felt very familiar and made them feel safe. That energy was so comforting and they don't know why. That's your intuition telling you that. That's your gut. Those are gut feelings. That's what they call that, or sixth sense, or whatever term you want to use for it. That's what your intuition is. And 9 out of 10 times we ignore it, or there's just so much noise going around. People are just like, oh, that's just whatever. It's fear. You're just afraid. You're just being judgmental. You're just very judgy, whatever.
Chihuahua brain, I call it.
Yes. And you kind of just brush it off and you ignore it. And so the first step would be, when you have that feeling, listen to it and then actively see where it takes you. And the reason I say start with a journal is because jot that down, because what you'll notice and what you can always do with a journal is go back and reflect, and you'll start to see a common theme and a pattern emerging the more that you're jotting it down. It's the same thing with like dreams. Everyone thinks that dreams are this or that, or I'm having this dream about this person over and over. It's always about you. Your subconscious is always talking to you. It's always about you.
Yeah.
And it's giving you all this information, and we shrug it off. But a lot of times when we have dreams, we wake up with this weird feeling. You know, write that down. Write down all the like little details. Go ahead.
I find we believe what we read.
Yes.
Even if you're standing in line and it was like, maybe Brad Pitt did do something on that airplane in the cover of that magazine.
We tend to do that. Even if you know it's not true, you still.
Yeah. There's something. So I find it's like when you say it, you claim it. So when you write it.
When you write it, your brain actually, there is something. The reason why people tell you to write down your affirmations, the reason why is because your brain connects with it more from pen to paper. When you take the pen and you put it to paper and you write it, you're actually reading it in your head, and it actually does download the information in the subconscious a lot quicker. For me, I have to say them out loud, otherwise I get a knot in my throat.
Right. You say it, you claim it.
Yes. And so for everyone, it's different. Some people can do it in their head. I have to actually say it out loud. I have to have the resonated voice, that frequency actually going out. Otherwise, my throat begins to tighten.
So does that go back to childhood and not having a voice as a child? Is that something that carries over, do you think? Or is it just...
It's possible. I don't know. I just know for me, and that was the other thing I learned about affirmations, because people always tell you there's like so many different ways to do it. And I remember people always going, you need to say it this way, or you need to say it that way. And eventually you just do it over and over and over again, and your brain will connect with it. I found the simplest and the easiest way was give yourself permission.
Yeah.
I told myself it was okay to have these things. I gave myself permission to like have these things. It was like, so often the easiest way to do it is just allow yourself. And that's the biggest one. The reason it doesn't connect is because you haven't actually accepted it and given yourself permission and said, I'm allowed to have these things. I'm allowed to have a good life. I am allowed to have love. I am allowed to have abundance. And it's okay. It's not a dirty word. It's okay to have abundance, and it's okay to want those things.
And abundance in all forms.
Yes.
Like
absolutely.
looking at it as abundance in all forms. Joy, laughter.
Sure. Abundance is everything.
Yeah.
You can have abundance in love. You can have an abundance in money. Money always seems to be one of those dirty words because people, and it's like money is energy. They're numbers in the ether. That's what they are. It's energy. It is an actual frequency, and it's okay to have it, because without it, you can't actually do anything in the world. So it is important key, But abundance isn't just material possessions or money. Abundance is
Yeah.
love, family, joy, laughter, children. All those different things encompass abundance. When people are abundant, their cup runs over. And the only natural thing next is to give. And that's where giving comes from, is because you are so abundant. That's just the natural next step, is to actually pass it on and let it overflow into people around you in the wider community.
I found with affirmations, I learned how my body responds to a lie, whether it's a lie that I've told myself or a lie that's coming at me.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
if it felt like a lie, then I'm rejecting it right away. So
There's a weird tightness that happens.
totally. And
for
again,
me,
that
it's like
helps
right
you
here and here.
understanding how your body is giving you your intuitive language, like learning
Yes.
your personal intuitive language.
And you don't even realize it until you start doing that, and you're like, why am I cringing?
I'm in the process of loving my body wholly and completely.
Yes.
Not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. So
Yes.
I'm in the process of truthful.
Yes. But it is true though. But your brain does, it connects with it more when you write it down. And I don't know, that is a really interesting question though, what you were saying earlier, whether or not it was I just didn't have a voice earlier on. I just know that, but because when I started doing affirmations later in life, that was a big one for me. It was like I really did need to not only hear my voice, but put it out there and let it resonate. And it was weird. And the moment that I started doing that, the affirmations actually started connecting.
Do you have journal books? Did you create journal?
I do, yes. A lot of them, Amazon, that was where I started with writing. Well, actually, gunsmithing is where I started with writing, oddly enough.
I read that. Your story is incredible. I'm telling you, Netflix docuseries. Somebody needs to get on it. Rachel Nordahl, the Psychic Seamstress. Somebody needs to make that happen.
That was like literally how I spent my pandemic, because when we had the lockdowns, I was in Arizona, so everything was locked down. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go to you could go to the grocery store, or you can go to the 2A stores. And my husband's really in 2As, and I couldn't understand anything people were talking about. I was like, I have no idea what any of this stuff is. And so I ended up taking a course that ended up being a longer course, which ended up being a degree. And so I was just like, okay, whatever. But it got me, the big thing that I took from that, well, I do now have an appreciation for firearms and the art behind firearms that I don't think people actually know about or understand.
My best friend helps design firearms.
Seriously? They are.
Seriously.
It's more
she said
than what people
there's an
think.
Art to it. Yeah.
Yes. Ballistics, they cast, hand loading, engraving. There's just so, and then the stories behind. You would never believe when you actually dig in and research the stories behind how firearms came about and which ones, and the men behind it. And they had nothing to do with that industry, and how they got into it and how the whole thing evolved. And it is so fascinating. And there's so much art behind it. And I got into researching, and I really got into writing. And every teacher that I had was like, you need to start writing. You need to be writing books. Like, you have a very distinct style, and you have a lot to say and a very interesting perspective. And I don't care what you're writing, but you need to be writing. And it was actually every single teacher came back with my papers. And one of them actually contacted me outside of school, and he was the one that was like, look, this is how you self-publish. These are the different things that you need. This is what you need to be doing. Start researching this, and here's a place to start. And then he sent me one of his own books, and he was like, this is how I did it. And from there, my curiosity just kind of started peaking, and I started doing workbooks. I started doing journals. I actually write in my own journals. And then I did a tarot workbook, and that was kind of how that started. And then the intuition one is literally, it started off as a little tiny workbook, and then it evolved into a book because it's everything running around inside my head. And I put it on paper, and I really think that if people actually started tapping into their own intuition and actually exploring that, you'd be amazed what blossoms. And intuition is not just for psychics and tarot readers. People in finance use their intuition. People in the stock market use their intuition. People in business use their intuition. It's key to so many different avenues in life. Very key. And you'll hear people in different sectors talk about they actually practice meditation and honing their intuition to make really big decisions. It is one of the biggest things, and it grounds you in your body. And when you're grounded in your body, there's so many things that knock you out of balance.
That's a big part, right? Where people feel disconnected from their body because they're in either survival mode or they're just in that go-go mode, outdated patterns. I'm really sorry, folks. I was so engrossed in the conversation. I was not paying attention to the comments, and I am so sorry. So I'm just getting rid of dude who is like scamming everybody for readings right now. So I think we've got rid of him. I'm very, very sorry, folks. I apologize profusely. Thank you for being patient. I am now on it. And that's okay. Not everybody needs to I'm just seeing a couple of comments from someone about guns, and not everybody's going to have the same opinion about guns, and we're not necessarily here to bait firearms.
Absolutely.
It's just part of your story, and
it's a part. It is a part of my story, and again, I don't
from
think
a creative aspect.
Yes,
it was from the creative aspect.
Yes, and I know everybody has their own opinions.
Gunsmithing, yes,
and it tends to fall into the political sphere more so than not. I was coming from it from a very different spectrum. I always thought firearms were just. Well, my first instinct was they're just pins and springs, and then you really get into it, and there's a whole art to it. There's so much more to it, and for me, that really blew my mind, and it did change my perspective.
Let's just. Sorry, folks, I'm just getting caught up here. There we go. Can you see that, Rachel?
Oh, where can we buy the book? Oh, it's on Amazon, and it is on Barnes & Noble's website. There's an ebook. We did it in the ebook format as well as I did it in the paper book format. It's on pre-order right now in Amazon and in Barnes & Noble's website. And then this Monday is the 25th, if I'm correct. It goes live.
You can pre-order it because that's what I did.
Yes. Yeah. You can pre-order it, and then Monday it actually releases, and it goes completely full launch. I just kind of did the pre-order ahead of time, so that way if I needed to adjust anything and figure things out, I gave myself wiggle room. But yeah, Monday it completely goes live. I'm waiting for my copy as well.
Really, eh?
Yes. I just have the PDF that you have. And so I'm like super, I want to see the tangible paperback.
I love the feel of a book. I love the smell of the paper. I love books to death, and I don't borrow books from anybody because I write in them. I dog ear. I put notes inside them. I
read them over and over and over again. Mine are just like they're very well used.
And so, I mean, I know that you set this up to be a support system for people who are beginning their intuitive journey, but it's, somebody that is moving along on their journey would benefit from this as well too. Can you talk about that?
Because it gives techniques. Because the beginning of the book talks about kind of where the world is right now, as far as like technology and where we are in the world. We're in the cusp of a technological revolution with AI, social media. Social media has turned into a global marketplace. So malls in the real world are kind of dying. Everyone is online, and that's where everything's happening. And because of that, there's so much noise and so much chatter and so much things being thrown out at you. So the book kind of starts with that, and then it goes into understanding your intuition. And then, sorry. The name of the book is Awaken Intuition, Developing Psychic Abilities and Cultivating Inner Wisdom for Beginners. It looks like this.
Yeah.
It's a sound wave, just in case.
And actually, if you go on Amazon and you do a search for Rachel's name and you type in Rachel Nordahl, her author's page comes up, and you can order from there. And the journals actually are some of the journals are available.
Absolutely. Or you can go to psychicseamstress.com, and the homepage has links to everything. So
I don't know. I tried to access it, but I'll try again later because it.
You have to put www. For some reason in front of it, because it's a custom domain, and so for some reason it does the same thing for me, and it's really frustrating because I normally just put in psychicseamstress.com and it doesn't work. But if you put www. in front, for some, I don't know, technology's finicky, it works. But it does work. But if you go there to the homepage, it's just immediately on the homepage, there's links to everything, and it'll take you wherever it is that you want to go. It'll take you directly to the page on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, depending on which platform you want to support. But the book initially, it starts with where we are right now and why everyone feels kind of out of alignment with themselves, because we're plugged in and what's happening. And then from there, I talk about different ways that you can connect with your intuition and understanding what it is and what it is that you're experiencing. And then throughout the book, there's different techniques, from grounding your energy to cleansing your energy. That's a really big one that people don't talk about enough.
I know.
And not just like your energy, like on your body, but also your dwelling, your home, your car, your space, because we collect energy, and your bubble goes all the way out past your fingertips, from top to bottom down to your feet. You have a sphere, and you're taking in all this information and data and people's energy when you work with people, and you have to cleanse that and diffuse it to get back to yours, so you're not processing everybody's stuff at all times. And you have to clean your space, your crystals.
Your energetic hygiene is as important as your physical hygiene.
Yes, it is. It is so key. And you'll also find when you do that, you feel 10 times better. It is so important to mental health. So important.
When I've done big events and come home and I'm really tired, so I neglect my self-care and go to bed without doing any cleansing at all or grounding, I wake up and feel like I have a psychic hangover. I am foggy brained. I am literally bumping into furniture and not in a cool space. So, I mean, again, that comes back to grace, you know, like I know that self-care is still a process for me to work on. And so forgive myself and get back on.
The big thing is not just forgiving yourself, but when that happens, is being aware of what's happening and why you feel that way. Because so often than not, we internalize that, and then we don't understand why we're feeling that way. Yeah. And so then you think that there's something else happening, and it's like you just downloaded while you were sleeping, not just all your experiences from the day, but everybody else's stuff that you just mingled with. And now your body just, your subconscious just downloaded all that. And now you're trying to filter what's yours and what's not. And so it's okay if that happens. And you have to be very graceful with yourself about it, but also self-awareness that, okay, this is why this is happening. And it's okay. I'm going to allow myself to feel what I'm feeling right now without judgment. And I'm going to do what I need to do to feel better. And that's a big one, because a lot of times, especially people in the manifesting world or the law of attraction world, tend to block out icky feelings completely. And they forget that some of those icky feelings are so important.
They're needed.
Yes.
You can't cut part of yourself out and be whole.
Yes.
Like you need to be whole.
Well, they're there for a purpose.
Yes.
Things hurt to tell you there's danger, and that's not okay. You get angry
Yes.
because that wasn't all right. It serves a purpose. Fear is a double-edged sword. It'll motivate you and it'll stop you in your tracks, and you have to choose what to do with it. But you have to allow yourself, you don't want to sit in it for days on end, but at the same time, you do want to allow yourself to feel it and process it and be okay with it when it's happening. And then go, okay, I'm going to give myself time to process this and feel this, and then I'm going to put it away where it goes. And and that comes with self-awareness. That really does come with learning about yourself.
And I encourage people, like, you may have sat in that muck for a while, but when you're on, it's an epic individual journey. So if you see the days that you sit in it getting shorter, you're doing a good job and keep going. Yeah.
No, that's the thing. It's supposed to get shorter and shorter as you go. And that means you're progressing, because too often than not, especially when we're younger, you create a blanket and you wrap yourself in it. And it's the comfort and the discomfort, and it's the comfort in knowing what to expect. And that's okay for a time being, but there does come a point where you have to shed that and be okay with that and be willing to be vulnerable. And there is a time and a place, because sometimes during the healing process, that serves a purpose while a wound is healing. And you have to allow yourself that space to do that. We go into cocoon mode in order to protect ourselves. And so you have to, like, be forgiving with that and allow yourself for that to happen. And then when it's time, you have to be willing to let it go and shed that. And I think that again, it comes with self-awareness. And as long as it comes with, as you learn to become more and more self-aware and accepting of your feelings and emotions and let them wash over you, and the better that you get at doing that, it shortens. And you'll get to a point where you can feel that part of the day. And by the time you go to bed, you feel better. And that's kind of where you want to be. You want to be able to not take it to bed with you. And it's a growing process, and it's painful. Growing pains is a real thing.
Yeah. And I call it stink eye type it. I kind of do this, like, when I hear somebody use the phrase love and lighter, I'm like, you gotta dig deep. It's gotta be raw and uncomfortable and a snotty, ugly mess at some point as you're processing things, and it's okay to really dig deep and feel. So Aline, I just wanted to share, shared like a spiritual bath helps as far as
absolutely. Salt baths help. Salt baths are one of the best things that you can do, because it has to be sea salt. People use Epsom salt because there's magnesium in it. Sea salt is one of the best things that you can put in your bath, because it really does diffuse negative energy, and salt pulls. So it just pulls it out of you. You can use it on your crystals. You can use it in your soaking in your tub. You just want to make sure that you wash off afterwards with cold water. You don't want to leave that in your skin because you don't want it to dry out. But it's one of those things that you'll figure out your own ritual and your own routine with it as far as self-care. But yeah, absolutely. What do you recommend to do daily?
Yes,
meditation, whether it's 5 minutes a day, some people do several hours a day. It doesn't matter, honestly. Everyone is different, and everyone's schedule is different. That's the big thing, is trying to work it into your schedule. But meditation once a day, and that could be listening to like a Hertz frequency. It could be listening to a guided meditation. It could be listening to brainwaves. Even classical music, actually. Anything like that, that soothes you.
A good Vivaldi. I love Vivaldi. More like a workout. I move through it fast.
Yes. I actually listen to Hertz frequencies when I do. That's what I used to do. I used to put on Hertz frequencies when I'd go to the gym. And so I would activate all the neural pathways in my brain while I'd be sweating. And I would go into a trance, and I would always leave the gym feeling amazing. That was my thing. And I would feel grounded and ready to take on the day. But any type of meditation, some people do meditation by just sitting still in silence. But brainwaves, the reason I say brainwaves and Hertz frequency is the greatest place to start is because what it's actually doing is you're tapping into the different frequencies and brainwaves. There's pathways. And so you want to actually change the pathways so that you're connecting on different synapses. I do 30 minutes meditation twice a month because that's exactly. You got to do what feels right for you and what works for your schedule, because some people can do it every day. Does really, if you want it to actually happen a lot quicker, once a day, 5 minutes a day. And I would suggest first thing when you wake up, start your morning, or right before you go to bed, because you're going into that sleep mode. So you're getting out of the way of your conscious mind. And that's why I say that, because you want to bypass that. Your conscious mind is always skeptical and always going to protect you. You're trying to get to the subconscious, and you're trying to actually create new pathways to actually connect dots. It's kind of like moving triggers in a different way, because you're creating different pathways of how things connect. Brain Sync is Kelly Hell is where I started, actually. And I started with, she has an amazing one. It's 30 minutes and it's for self-love. And when I first started doing them, this was like forever. I want to say like almost 2 decades ago. It was uncomfortable. I couldn't stand it. It gave me a headache. And the reason being is because you're now, instead of the normal pathways and neural pathways, you're changing that, and it's changing the dialogue. So as you're creating new grooves and new pathways, it's uncomfortable because your conscious mind wants to resist it. And what do they tell you with resistance? You want to lean into it. Anytime you're doing self-help, anything having to do with self-help and self-growth, where you have the most resistance is the direction that you need to go. Because
it's persistent.
Yes, because it is. Because it's like, no, we don't want to do that. That's not a part of our blueprint. That's not our programming. Why would you want to go there? That's going to end badly. And so that's those programs in the background running. And I had to actually work through that. And it took about a week and a half of listening to it. And it just felt like nails on a chalkboard. And now when I listen to that same session, I pass out. I instantly go into a trance, and it's the most calming, relaxing, and it puts me to sleep the fastest. But you have to actually, as soon as my brain connected to it, it was like so soothing.
I make my morning coffee routine my meditation time. Like I include that as part of that whole. So I actually have my first coffee, but I'm not drinking it. It's just the warmth of it is comforting. The smell of it is so it's extra sensory for me. And I just kind of take those deep breaths and away I go. So really meditation can be how you need it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no right or wrong way. And I think that's a big misconception. People think it has to be a set way. And there isn't. There's not one size fits all.
Well, because there are some people within that love and lighter community that make it rigid. There are teachers within the woo-woo world that are very rule and oriented and strict, and it's okay to have an appreciation from where it came from, but be open-minded. It's not going to be the same.
Well, that's like relationships. There is no right or wrong way to have a relationship, and that includes with yourself. It's what works for you. And people that are that rigid, they need that structure. They need those hard lines, or they fall out of sync. And that works for them. And they can be rigid like that, but that's not for everyone else. And it is okay, Contessa, that your mind wanders off to do other things. You don't have to stay focused. That's just it. When you're doing meditation, you're not supposed to stay focused. If you want to focus on something, when your mind starts going like racing and you're just like, why am I planning out the rest of my life? Focus back on your breath of breathing in, breathing out, and then let your mind wander again. You don't have to control your thoughts. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is you can observe your thoughts and you can let them race all they want to go, but you don't have to control them. And you also have to remember, sometimes when there's so much going on in your head, how much do you actually journal or actually talk out? Like, do you have someone that you can actually talk to? Because a lot of times it's just loose brackets looking for shelves. There's so much running around inside of there. And then your mind starts racing. And a lot of times we try to control that, which when you do that, it just speeds up. And it's just like, ah! And then you end up fighting your own inner dialogue. And
that's right.
Yes.
that negative self-talk will kick in.
Yes, it absolutely does. And then you go,
Mhm.
well, it doesn't work for me. And you're just supposed to observe it, let it go. Even if your mind is all over the place, just sitting still, there's something to that.
Yeah.
And your mind is doing all that busy work because it's not used to sitting still and it doesn't want to. It wants to keep you so that you don't ever pay attention to what's actually happening.
Right.
So just allow it to wander. That's what I say.
And then journal.
Yes, and journal about it.
journal.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
journaling is one of those things where spelling doesn't matter, grammar doesn't matter, your way that you talk doesn't matter. It's just getting it out of your head. Everything that you've ever wanted to say. It is a private place. It's a sacred place. It's between you and yourself and your journal. And you can always look back at it. You can rant on it. You can yell, scream, whatever. It's just getting it out of your head. Because 9 out of 10 times we don't have, like, your self-dialogue. How many people share their self-dialogue with their partners? It's just a bunch of stuff running around. And 9 out of 10 times.
Or their dogs if you don't have a partner.
Exactly. I talk to my dogs all the time and my husband.
Me too.
but 9 out of 10 times, we build things up inside of our head and it's so huge. And the moment that you say it out loud, you start to realize how insignificant and little it is. It's just a loose bracket looking for a shelf. It doesn't know where to go and it doesn't know how big it is. And inside your imagination and your conscious mind makes a big, huge mountain out of a molehill. And it's just all over the place. And so get it out of you. That's the first thing that you want to do.
Yeah. So those of us, I'm really sorry.
No,
anybody that's just tuning in and joining us on the show today, thank you for joining us here on Spirit Switchboard. I'm your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 New Orleans. And we have Rachel Nordahl on the show, and we're talking about intuition, and Monday is the release of her book, Awaken Intuition. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
I know. Do you know, I wrote the description for today's show twice, and I think that I had put just released on one because I had pre-ordered it, and then I was like, oh my goodness. It's like, oh,
it doesn't, even if you order it today or you order it Monday, it's still going to ship out on Monday.
Yeah, Monday is the release. Monday is the release.
But that was kind of like, I would say start with meditation. Journaling is so key. And then from there, there's so many different ways that you can go. Learn about, the book does talk about your chakras. It talks about Hertz frequencies. It talks about brainwaves. And it does talk about spiritual tools. I use tarot. And the reason I use tarot, one of the biggest reasons I got into tarot, it's a focal point. It's a total focal point. The Fool's Journey in tarot.
But you're visual.
Yes, I'm very tactile and very visual. And I'm very particular even about my cards. Before I buy cards, I actually have to go through them and see if I resonate with the pictures, the colors, the imagery.
Yeah.
Otherwise, even though I know the traditional meaning of the cards, I can't read them. I just look at them and stare at them. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't get anything.
So how would you encourage people to understand or to pause, how to pause so they don't ask tarot questions or use their pendulum or whatever spiritual tool that they're using when they're emotionally charged? Like asking in the,
trying to remain neutral when you're supercharged.
Yeah. Emotionally charged moments, right? And emotionally charged questions. Can you speak to
as far as like a client being emotionally charged or you being emotionally charged and you're reading it to read yourself?
Exactly.
That's two different things.
When you're reading for yourself. Because, I mean, we're at this point, if we're talking about beginners, right? And encouraging people to tap in, you know, the hope is that you're not practicing on other people when you're just learning for yourself at this point, right?
Absolutely.
Because that's just
being unbiased with yourself is one of the hardest things to do. And I think a lot of it, whether you're using pendulums or you're using tarot cards, there's like so many different divination tools that people use. When you're reading yourself, it's being able to be objective and looking at it from outside of yourself. And that is one of the hardest things to do. And that comes with practice. And in the very beginning, it's really difficult. And the reason being is because people are so, all of us are so attached to the outcome. You really want to know. You want it to be in your favor. And we don't look at things as going, well, if I don't get what I want, that's probably good for me. And I don't get what I want, I get what I need. And I get how life gives you what you believe yourself to be. And we don't understand, like we can understand it from an outside point of view, but when you internalize that, there's a disconnect there. So a lot of times we get attached to the outcome. So when you're reading yourself, your bias is completely skewed because you're just like, well, I'll find a way to make that fit into what it is.
Oh yeah. And really it should be that high intention, low attachment.
Yes, it can be very, when your emotions and your energy is super high, you can actually, you end up manipulating yourself into like, well, I know that card traditionally means this, but it probably fits this way. And so it's very hard. And that comes with, I would say the biggest thing, if you want to learn how to do that, learn about self-awareness, learn about why it is that you do the things that you do. Why do you want that? Why is it that you need that so badly? What is it that you want? What is it that you think that you want from that situation? I actually really evaluate that.
Yeah. And it's not easy. I did this exercise, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, because journaling was always really hard for me because journaling meant accountability. And I was really wanting to bury my head in some certain places that I didn't want what the truthful answer was. So then when I stepped into being truthful, I wrote out every male person that I could remember, like from as far back from the youngest age. I wrote every male person, what that relationship was, what the lesson was that I learned. And I'm currently 52. So I did this maybe about 7 years ago. So that's a lot of people to run into, but it was like teachers and kids that I had relationships with. And it honestly, it's so truthful what you said. Like when you are writing it, you see the patterns. You start to see. So I did the same with women as well too. And I could see why I was pulled to certain people. I could see why certain people were drawn to me. And it was a huge aha moment for me.
Well, one of the biggest things that people, when you Rachel, I just want to read this.
I just want to read this for you. Or if you want to read it.
It says, yes, self-reading can be so deceptive as your energy can be strong and manipulative. Yes, absolutely, it can be when you're looking at yourself. And the biggest thing is that no one wants to admit out loud. And like what you're saying, write it down because it does make you accountable when you look back and you see the patterns. Is regardless of what relationship that you're in, whether it's platonic or romantic, the only common denominator between you and everyone that comes into your life is you. That's it. That's the constant. That is what doesn't change, is you. So you can say, I end up with people that are really horrible to me. I always have friends that backstab me. I always have this. I always have that. You're the only constant. So the better question is why are you attracting them? What is it that you're getting out of this? Because you're getting something. Because you're allowing these people to come into your life. There is something that you're getting out of these toxic relationships that either feels comfortable or fulfilling, or you feel that you deserve, whatever it is, or you're just used to it because you grew up with people like that. Is it your parents? Like, who is it? What is it? Because the way that your brain works in psychology, it's called transference. And what your brain naturally does, and for me, this hit home big time, was the way that your brain works is we are constantly, this is the biggest way to find the patterns in your life, is you're constantly projecting situations over and over and over again. You're casting that net out and you're bringing the same energy back, and you're going to replay the same situation in real time. And it's going to be different players, different people, but you're going to end up in the same dynamic, same energy, same situation, same outcome. And it's going to happen over and over again, which is why we date an archetype over and over and over until you consciously do something different. And you have to consciously do something different. And your brain does that naturally. On its own, it does that. And so when you look at it that way and you look at time, time is not linear. And when you look at quantum physics, they say that the past, the present, and the future are simultaneously happening all at once, which is why time bends and it curves. So what your brain is doing is it's constantly pulling the past to your present. And as soon as you decide to make different choices, and that's where accountability comes in and responsibility comes in. And the moment that you do that and you take accountability, no one wants to take accountability because then you have to admit that you're creating this. You're doing this.
Yes.
And you're hurting yourself by constantly attracting these people and allowing them into your life, and you're repeating the same patterns. You know this archetype of person is going to be bad for you, but you're going to do it anyways, because at least you can break your own heart before they get a chance to do it themselves. So you don't ever have to be vulnerable, ever. You don't ever have to be real. But the moment that you take that control back and you take the accountability, you now have the ability to change the future. So tomorrow is going to look different because that type of person and that energy, the moment that you correct it, it fades away and it goes away. And now you're onto a new pattern. And your brain naturally does that all by itself.
Because we're in constant, it's really important for people to know we are in constant co-creation with the universe. So every thought, word, deed, and action matters because it's energy that's rippling out. So we can still have an ick thought. I'm always about, I do this. We're just going to clear, cancel, and delete that. Thank you very much.
It's true though.
I forgive myself. I forgive them. We're just going to like karma clear that.
But the thing is what you
get back on track.
Co-create. And I think people get confused by that because they think, well, then I'm creating everything. You're not creating everything because other people you cannot control, and other people are having their own experiences, and you can't control those variables. You can control yourself and how you react and respond. So you're co-creating. They're having their experience and you're having yours. And that's important. So how can you wait?
Hi, Howie. Thanks for joining in today.
Kathleen said, so how can we use intuition to guide us in ways which allows us to see the changes we need to make? Actually sit in silence in meditation, and it's about intention. And when you actually practice meditation all the time, or daily or weekly, whatever it is on your schedule, there's no right or wrong way. Set your intention before you actually meditate. And if you're asking, like you want to know, what is it that I need to know, or what is it that I need to change, or what is it that I need to recognize? Give me a sign, show me. You'd be amazed that when you actually put that intention there and you practice these grounding practices and start listening to your gut. Yeah. And sometimes your intuition doesn't make sense. You're like, why would it? You'll get these, like, when the voices come, they come and they're gone. They don't repeat themselves. It gives it to you and that's it. You either listen or you ignore it. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. And sometimes you're like, why would I do that? That just seems weird. Do it anyways. Yeah. If your gut told you to do it,
that's what Kathleen is saying. It really just falls on us. The cards or ways we look for guidance are only helpful if we are listening.
Yes. But that is how putting intention, whether it's writing in your journal, saying it out loud, saying it in your mind, when you're grounding yourself. And that's kind of what meditation for me is it's really about grounding yourself. I mean, meditation could be doing yoga because it's grounding you in your body.
A non-thinking moment.
Yes. And being present in your body with breath. That's kind of the key, because the more you're present in the moment and in your body, the more present you are with everything going on, and you can actually hear.
Jody, I just want to be clear. Like Jody, I'm putting your question up.
I'm just always aware of what. Wait, thinking so much you now. Wait, I don't think
I'm not. Maybe we just need to clarify what that question is.
Yes. Could you elaborate? What if you're always aware of what thinking? Huh?
So you're just hyper-focused? Are you hyper-focused on a continuous thought, Jody? Maybe you can give us another comment so that, or clarification so that we can comment. Yeah, so we can comment.
I apologize. There's a disconnect happening in my brain because I'm
That's okay, mine too.
if you're always, and it's okay to always be aware. And sometimes, I mean, it's natural. Thank you for addressing my thoughts and questions. Absolutely. And sometimes we do obsess over things, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to make it true. That's the other thing. Sometimes people tend to think with co-creating that I'm obsessing over this and now I'm going to cause this to happen. That's not necessarily how it works. Just because you're obsessing on it doesn't mean that your subconscious believes it to be true.
Yeah.
That's just it, because
the
it's not what
brain.
Yes, there's the subconscious, there's 3 levels to your mind, and you're trying to get this to your blueprint. You're trying to be an architect, basically, because your blueprint is created from the frequency that you came in through with your parents, and you're absorbing all this information as children through your environment and through your upbringing. And then we become adults and we go out into the world. So now you have a baseline, and what you do with that baseline is up to you. You can create a shack, a mansion, or a condo, whatever it is you want. And the things that you don't want, as soon as you become self-aware, you can change those things. You can move those triggers. You can process that information. You can download new data. Your brain is a supercomputer. So you can, just as much as you clean the cookies and you expunge and delete programs, you can download new programs and you can build the computer that you want. You can't ever erase things forever, but you can't on the internet either. There's always a blueprint, there's always like a fingerprint of things, but you can, where you create those pathways and where the synapses are going, that's new programs. So you can change all of that. You can change, but you have to change who you are. And if you want better things in your life, you want a better relationship, it starts with changing everything in here and in here. And when you change those, everything out here changes.
And that's so key. It's the thoughts, words, deeds, actions. It's all this vibration that's working together. So it all has to be in alignment.
Yes, it is. You have to have the emotion. Your heart chakra has to be open. You have to have the thoughts. That's the elixir. And then you have to have the belief. And so all of it has to synchronize in order for it to actually become a reality, because life is you projected outward. So you do actually have to get down to that subconscious mind so that it's an actual belief. You can't fake it, and you can't consciously tell yourself something, because that core belief is always running in the background quietly. You have to get to that. And that's why I say, if you start your morning with meditation or end your day with meditation, ending your day is a great place to be, because we download everything. Your subconscious mind pulls everything and then it puts it where it needs to go while you're sleeping. So that's the best time to give it more information, so it downloads it. Or when you wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m, it's called the witching hour. Everyone's asleep in the world. That is the best time when you wake up. Focus on what it is that you want, because you're going to fall back asleep.
Yeah.
That's the best time to do it. Easier said than done. Yeah, everything is always easier said than done, and nothing good ever comes easy.
That's why they call it a practice.
Yes.
It's why they call it a practice. It's a practice and a journey.
Yeah, but that's just it though. Like, nothing in life, you don't know how to articulate until you actually take the chance and learn how to speak and saying your thoughts out loud and being vulnerable. And everyone thinks that, like, I hear this a lot in relationships. Well, they just don't know how to communicate. Communication's a skill set. Yeah. And you have to practice. You have to practice controlling your emotions. You have to practice actually reserving yourself when someone says something that you don't like without lashing out immediately. You actually, like, everything that you learn, you have to practice. It's never easy in the beginning, ever. It gets easier the more you master a skill set, and you can take it in baby steps and then add.
I think encouraging people to understand that intuition is a natural part of who we are. It's just remembering those aspects of who we are.
Yes.
And it's a 24/7 flow that we're breathing in and out of. It doesn't have to be like, I'm just doing this in this moment, and this is my only time to tap into it.
And you don't want to overanalyze yourself too, either. That is the other thing, because in life, timing is everything. And I can't iterate that enough. Sometimes you have to go through certain experiences and have certain things happen in your life in order to gain the insight, the knowledge, and the tools for what's coming down the pipeline, which is why you don't get everything all at once that you want. Because sometimes things have to happen in order for that to get there. And it's the
other
journey.
People who are involved.
Absolutely. And they're on their own path. And you have to cross paths at the right moment. They're going through what they're going through, and you're going through what you're going through. And it goes back to that thing where it's like, some of the most horrific things that ever happened to me in my life have been the biggest blessings in my life. It didn't feel that way when it happened. Yeah. But in hindsight, I would not get rid of any of those experiences, because I wouldn't be who I am today. And I find a lot, I will look back and I'm like, I had no idea how much that was preparing me for what I'm facing right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's preparing you. Life never gives you more than what you can handle. And later on down the road, it will loop back around where it'll make sense. And you're like, holy cow, that literally prepared me for this moment. And
yes. And that's how I felt about yours. That's what I felt about your story. Somebody had made a comment earlier and I had missed it, and I apologized about Hulu needs to pick it up, not necessarily Netflix. I'll watch it on whatever streaming platform it's on. Yeah. Contessa, it's just I just put this up there for you to read if you
I guess we truly are students from the time we are born to the day we die. It is a forever learning journey. That is absolutely true. And it is the journey. That's the big thing. It's not the destination. It's the journey. Yeah. It's the experiences along the way and the people that you meet along the way and the experiences that you have, and take those in. They're precious and they're feeding. Yeah. Nothing lasts forever. Enjoy it. Enjoy the good and the bad, because it's shaping you and you're growing. If you're only having good experiences, you're not growing yet. You haven't had anything push back at you. You haven't had to break out of a box. You haven't had to actually shed that skin and try something new on. And it's not, don't go seeking out, horrible experiences. But at the same time, get out of your comfort zone. Try new things. Don't be afraid to fail, because that is where you're going to learn what you like and what you don't like. Thank you so much, ladies. Great show and amazing guidance. Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle, for listening in and joining us today. And I want to put this up for you as well, too.
Yes. I told my son we all will always have new things to learn in life, no matter how old we get. That's true. That's absolutely true. And it only gets better, I think. I like growing older.
I agree.
I love it. I personally, most people say they want to go back to their 20s. I don't.
No.
I love being older.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. It's easier. Everything isn't so dramatic. You're not living in your emotions. There's more perspective. And life is so much more fun. And you enjoy all of the little things. Relationships get better. I don't know how to explain it. You just learn to really love and embrace yourself, and you enjoy all of your flaws.
Yes. And you're seeing how you can empower yourself, right?
Yes. But it's not even just like, I feel like as you get older, it's no longer I. Where the real joy comes from is watching other people pop and bloom. Yeah. And when you see those people have those aha moments and you watch them pop and like they step into who they are, it's weird how much pleasure you get from it, because you're watching people grow and expand. And it is such a like you learn to appreciate other people's success and seeing people step out and share their story. And then it's inspiring and it encourages you and it encourages other people. And it's like a ripple effect. And as you get older, you really learn to appreciate that. And it's beautiful. It's no longer just about you. So I don't know. I like getting older.
Yeah, I do too. I have a granddaughter that's 3, so that's added a whole other realm to it. And so, I know that the people that do follow me on this journey and have allowed me to be a part of their journey know that my granddaughter calls me Queenie, and I just because it's fun. Like, it's so fun. I had quite a while ago. I had a date that kind of went sideways, and it went sideways because I said, I'm about to be a grandma, and I can't wait because I know that I want to be called Queenie. And he's like, great, being called a grandpa or a grandma is so that's such respect to be called Queenie. I just don't understand why you'd be want it. And I'm like, it's still respectful, but it's just a little bit of fun. We're just gonna have a little bit of fun.
Well, absolutely. And it's a 3-year-old, which is even funner. They're so amazing. Little people are just like, I don't know. They're amazing.
Because everything is a sense of wonder. Everything feels like Christmas morning. It feels like, whew, what wonderful things are going to happen today? What joy is going to happen today?
I was the auntie with all my siblings' children because I did art and fashion. So I got to play dress up with all of their kids and make their Halloween costumes. And like holidays, all the women would be in the kitchen and I would be off in my makeup collection, and they'd be painting, drawing all over my face and doing my hair, running into the wardrobe room. And it was, for me, it was fun. It was like so much fun because I was just off dorking off with the little kids. I was that aunt.
So with my granddaughter for her 3rd birthday, which was in June, I bought her, didn't make, but purchased, I made her a tickle trunk. I don't know if you know Dr. Dress Up, Mr. Dress Up. Mr. Dress Up's Canadian.
Wow.
Ernie Combs, but he would have the tickle trunk. And when you opened up the tickle trunk, it was Dress Up and you could play and use your imagination. So that's who I grew up with. So I made her a tickle trunk and filled it with all kinds of dress up stuff, from mummies and skeletons to butterflies to dinosaurs, you name it, it's in there. But she just loves it. She loves running around the house and having a sense of wonder. And I think for us adults, I know that our time is limited right now too. And I'm sorry that I'm going to be kind of rushing you through this, but your inner child, you actually gave your inner child a name.
Yes. Madison. Yeah, I didn't actually give her a name.
You did.
She did.
She presented it.
Well, I was 32 years old and I had a dream. And I was hearing audio outside of myself while I was sleeping, and it woke me up. And it was a woman called my name. And then I kept having dreams about a little blonde girl with curls. That was in my early 30s. And then after I married my husband, she started coming back into my dreams. And I finally asked what her name was. And she presented herself in a dream, and she called herself Madison. And so I just call her Madison. And when I meditate, I've asked about her, and I always see white, huge wings behind her in my 3rd eye. And so when I channel, I actually connect to Madison, which is my inner child and my higher self, when I connect to source energy. And when I write, it's literally like writing in a trance, and it's streaming conscious thought. And that's actually the state that I write in when I write.
Yeah.
But and that's where I got Madison from.
That's amazing. And I think but it's so important. And again, there's an aspect of that non-thinking moment, creativity, and knowing all of that is part of the journey. And
it's also being non-judgmental because it was a weird, I was kind of scared of it at first because I was like, I literally heard her voice outside of myself, and that kind of freaked me out at first. And then I kept dreaming about her.
That would be another level of your intuitive muscle and how it works, like your inside ear, outside ear, inside eye, outside eye.
Absolutely. Some people hear audio outside. I just had never, that was the first time I had ever experienced it. So it was new.
Right.
And I was like, is that normal? Like, what is that? Where did that come from? And I really had to, and I think when I met my husband, he really created that safe space for me to really explore it. And he was very supportive about it. He was non-judgmental about it. He was very supportive about it, and go ahead and explore that. And the more I explored it and meditated on it, and focused on my third eye, the more I set intentions, and she just revealed herself to me through dreams, which one of the books that I wrote, there's chapters upon chapters about Madison. And I actually talk about the dreams, the experiences, and how her and I actually connected. But honestly, I think she's always been there. I don't think this is something that came about. I think it is my inner child. I think the day that I almost died on the side of the road, because I remember vividly, and I remember telling my mom, because I was bleeding out on the side of the road for 2.5 hours with a truck on top of me. And I didn't feel alone. There was someone with me, and it was a presence, and it told me I was going to be okay. And so I felt like I was wrapped in white light. And I actually think that was Madison. I think it's my inner child and my higher self that's always been with me. And I believe that's the imagination that I had when I was a little girl. And it was just a matter of me coming to a point in my life where I was ready to actually introduce myself, because I think somewhere along the way I had put her away.
Right.
And locked her kind of up in a room, if that
Divine
makes sense.
timing. Yep.
Yes.
Divine timing.
Because we
Then
do
it
that.
unfolded.
We tuck away our innocence and we put it away. We put away childish things. And sometimes you need to take that back out, because she is my intuition.
Exactly. This has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It was great. Honestly, it was great. We can do this again. I would love to.
I love talking to you.
We can, maybe next time we can open it up if you want to take questions as well.
Yes,
too.
that would be awesome.
Other intuitive questions. We can do this again another time.
Okay.
So
absolutely.
for those of you that have been asking questions and commenting, thank you so much for being a part of our show today. You can look for Rachel Nordahl's book on Monday. It is released. If you want to do it before Monday, you can pre-order. It is Awaken Intuition, Developing Psychic Abilities and Cultivating Inner Wisdom for Beginners, and on Amazon. Is it Barnes and Noble? Yeah. Or we've had the Psychic Seamstress up at gmail.com if you want to send Rachel
you can email me directly.
An email. And I just want to thank the station. Thank you to the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7. So next week on the show, we actually have my son, Taylor, is going to be on the show, and we're going to be talking about we're going to talk about paranormal conspiracies.
Oh, wow. Okay. I want to tune into that.
Super fun. Paranormal conspiracies. He's got a few that I had never even heard of. Meowing nuns. Did you know that?
No, that one I haven't heard.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
I hadn't either. It was a new one that he brought to the table. So it's actually a pre-record, because I'm doing a charity event that night. But it is a pre-record. So please tune in.
I'm definitely. I want to hear what he has to say.
Yeah. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.